Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Wanderer. The ship was not big or fancy. It was just a simple exploration vessel with a crew of 5 people. Jake had been flying through space for 15 years, but he still loved the quiet moments when everything was peaceful. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Amy Walsh from her science station. She was a young woman with short brown hair and curious eyes. Amy had joined the crew 6 months ago, fresh from the Space Academy. Jake turned to look at her. "What kind of strange?" Amy frowned at her screens. "There's an energy reading about 2 light years ahead. It's not like anything in our databases. The patterns are really weird." Lisa Carter, the chief engineer, looked up from her work. She was a tough woman in her 30s who could fix anything on the ship. "Maybe it's a new type of star?" she suggested. "No," Amy shook her head. "Stars don't pulse like this. The energy comes and goes in waves. It's almost like it's calling to something." Mike Torres, the security officer, crossed his arms. He was a big man who always worried about danger. Could be a trap. Pirates sometimes use strange signals to lure ships. Dan Parker, who handled all communications, laughed. "Mike, we're thousands of light years from any known pirate territory. There's nothing out here but empty space." Jake thought for a moment. The Wanderer was on a routine mission to map new star systems. They had been traveling for 3 weeks without finding anything interesting. This energy signal was the first unusual thing they had encountered. "How far did you say it was?" Jake asked. "About 2 light years. Our jump drive could get us there in a few hours." Lisa said. Jake made his decision. "All right, let's go take a look, but we stay alert. If anything seems dangerous, we jump away immediately." The crew prepared for the journey. Lisa went to the engine room to check the jump drive. Mike made sure all the ship's weapons were ready, even though they only had basic defensive systems, and tested the communication equipment. Amy gathered all her science tools. "Jump drive is ready," Lisa announced over the intercom. "Beginning jump sequence," Jake said. He pressed the buttons on his control panel. The ship's engines hummed louder. Outside the windows, the stars began to stretch into long lines of light. The jump should have taken 3 hours, but something went wrong. "Captain," Lisa's voice came over the intercom, sounding worried. "The jump drive is acting strange. The energy readings are off the charts." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before." The ship began to shake. The lights flickered on and off. Amy grabbed her station to keep from falling. "The energy signal is getting stronger," she said. "It's like it's pulling us toward it." "Can you shut down the jump drive?" Jake asked Lisa. "I'm trying, but it's not responding. Something is controlling it from outside the ship." The shaking got worse. Alarms started beeping all over the bridge. Don tried to send a message back to Earth, but the communication system was not working. "Everyone hold on," Jake shouted. The ship suddenly stopped shaking. The lights came back on. Outside the windows, the stars looked different. They were brighter and arranged in patterns that none of them recognized. "Where are we?" Mike asked. Amy checked her instruments. Her face went pale. "According to these readings, we're about 50,000 light years from Earth. That's impossible. Our jump drive can't go that far." 50,000 light years? Dan repeated. "That would put us in a completely different part of the galaxy." Before anyone could respond, alarms started beeping again. But these were different alarms. These meant other ships were nearby. "Captain," Mike said, looking at his screens. "We have company. Lots of company." Jake looked at the main screen. His eyes grew wide. Surrounding the Wanderer were dozens of huge ships. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. The ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal. They were beautiful, but also frightening. Each one was at least 10 times bigger than the Wanderer. "Are they hostile?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Mike said. "They're not shooting at us, but they're definitely watching us." One of the alien ships moved closer. It was massive, bigger than any human space station. Strange lights pulsed along its surface. "Incoming transmission," Dan announced. "It's on a frequency I've never seen before, but our computer is translating it." "Put it through," Jake said. A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect English, but there was something cold about it. "Unknown vessel. You have entered the sacred space of the Zephyrian Dominion. Identify yourself immediately." Jake took a deep breath. This was first contact with an alien species. Everything he said next could determine the future of humanity. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Wanderer. We didn't mean to enter your space. Our ship malfunctioned and brought us here by accident." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice spoke again. "Humans? We have no record of this species. Your primitive vessel is not capable of traveling such distances. How did you truly arrive here?" Lisa whispered to Jake. "They called our ship primitive." Jake ignored her comment and answered the aliens. "As I said, we had a malfunction. We're explorers from Earth. We're peaceful and just want to return home." Another pause. Then the alien voice said, "You will come aboard our flagship. Admiral, Kethvar wishes to examine you and your crude technology. You have no choice in this matter." The massive alien ship moved even closer. A bright beam of light shot out from it and surrounded the Wanderer. Jake felt the ship being pulled toward the alien vessel. "They're using some kind of tractor beam," Lisa said. "I can't break free. Should we fight?" Mike asked, his hand moving toward the weapon controls. Jake shook his head. "No. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Besides, they haven't hurt us yet. Maybe they're just curious." As the Wanderer was pulled into the alien ship, Jake wondered what they would find. These Zephyrians seemed very confident and powerful. They had called human technology primitive and crude. But Jake had a feeling that things might not be as simple as they appeared. The crew of the Wanderer was about to discover that sometimes the biggest fish in a small pond are still very small fish indeed. The Wanderer landed inside a huge docking bay that could have held 100 ships their size. Jake and his crew stepped out onto the metal floor and looked around in amazement. The walls were covered in smooth crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, and the air hummed with energy. "Welcome to the Eternal Glory, flagship of the Zephyrian Dominion," said a tall alien who approached them. He had pale, almost transparent skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He wore a uniform covered in medals and ribbons. "I am Admiral Kethvar, commander of this vessel." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Morrison. These are my crew members. We appreciate your hospitality, but we'd really like to return to our home space." Admiral Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your home space? Little primitive, you are thousands of light years from wherever you came from. Your tiny ship could never make such a journey. You will remain here until we decide what to do with you." Amy looked around the docking bay with interest. As a scientist, she was curious about everything she saw. But she noticed something odd. The technology looked impressive, but it also seemed strangely old-fashioned. "Come," Admiral Kethvar said. "I will show you the wonders of our civilization. Perhaps then you will understand how fortunate you are to be here." The Admiral led them through corridors lined with more glowing crystal. They passed groups of aliens who stopped to stare at the humans. The Zephyrians were all tall and thin, with that same pale skin. They wore simple robes and moved in a way that seemed almost like floating. "This ship is 10,000 years old," Admiral Kethver said proudly. "It has been the flagship of our fleet since the beginning of our great empire. We have ruled this sector of space for longer than your species has probably existed." They entered a large room filled with control panels and screens. Dozens of Zephyrians worked at various stations, monitoring displays and pushing buttons. The Admiral gestured grandly. "Behold our command center. From here, we control the movement of our entire fleet. Our communication systems can reach any part of our empire in mere minutes." Dan, who knew a lot about communication technology, looked at the equipment with surprise. The aliens seemed very proud of their system, but it looked incredibly slow. To him, human quantum communication networks could send messages across the galaxy instantly. "Your communication system," Dan said carefully. "How exactly does it work?" One of the Zephyrian technicians, a female with silver markings on her skin, answered eagerly. "We use quantum pulse transmission through subspace conduits. It is the most advanced communication technology in the galaxy." Dan nodded politely, but he was confused. The system they described was something humans had used 50 years ago, before developing much faster methods. Next, Admiral Kethver took them to the weapons deck. Here, massive crystal cannons lined the walls. Energy crackled between metal rods, and the whole room vibrated with power. "These are our Devastator cannons," the Admiral announced. "Each one can destroy an entire continent on a planet's surface. No enemy has ever survived their fury." Mike examined the weapons with professional interest. As a security officer, he knew a lot about different types of guns and cannons. But these weapons seemed surprisingly weak for something so large. The energy output was roughly the same as a human mining laser. "Impressive," Mike said, trying to be diplomatic. "How much energy do they use?" "Each cannon requires the full power output of our main reactor for 30 seconds, Admiral Kethver said proudly. Mike tried not to show his surprise. A human warship could fire weapons just as powerful continuously without straining their power. Systems. The tour continued to the engineering section. Here, Lisa got to see the Zephyrian technology up close. The aliens showed off their artificial gravity generators with great pride. "Artificial gravity is our greatest scientific achievement," explained the chief engineer, an elderly Zephyrian named Takmar. "It took us 3,000 years to develop this technology. Now our ships can provide comfortable gravity for our crews during long voyages." Lisa nodded and smiled, but inside she was amazed. Humans had been using artificial gravity for over a century. It was standard equipment on every spacecraft, even small civilian ships. As they walked through the engineering section, Amy noticed that one of the gravity generators was making a strange noise. She could see that a small component was loose and vibrating. Without thinking, she pulled out her pocket multi-tool and quickly tightened the connection. The noise stopped immediately. The Zephyrian engineers stared at her in shock. "How did you know to do that?" Takmar asked. "Oh, it's a common problem with gravity generators," Amy said casually. "The resonance feedback can cause loose connections. You just need to check the coupling joints regularly." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. They had never heard of resonance feedback or coupling joints. Their engineers had been trying to fix that noise for weeks. During the entire tour, the Zephyrians kept talking about how advanced and powerful their civilization was. They spoke of their vast empire that controlled dozens of star systems and ruled over millions of subjects. They described their fleet of hundreds of warships and their incredible scientific achievements. The humans listened politely and made appropriate sounds of appreciation. But privately, they were growing more and more surprised. Everything the Zephyrians showed them was impressive looking, but actually quite primitive by human standards. "Your species must be amazed by our technology," Admiral Kethver said as they returned to the command center. "I imagine you have never seen anything so advanced." "It's certainly very different from what we're used to," Jake said carefully. "Tell me about your home world," the Admiral commanded. "What level of technology do your people possess?" Jake thought about how to answer. He didn't want to offend the aliens, but he also didn't want to lie. "Well, we have a few hundred colonies spread across our local area of space. Our population is around 50 billion people. We've been exploring space for about 200 years. Admiral Kethvar's 4 eyes widened. "Hundreds of colonies? 50 billion people? Surely you exaggerate. Our great empire contains 47 star systems with a total population of 12 million. I assure you, I'm not exaggerating," Jake said. The Admiral looked skeptical. "And your technology? Show me one of your devices." Amy hesitated, then pulled out her standard scientific scanner. It was a small device that every human research ship carried. "This is a basic scanner. It can analyze materials, detect energy sources, and map local space." She activated the device and pointed it around the room. Immediately, it began displaying detailed information about the ship's structure, power systems, and even the locations of crew members throughout the vessel. The Zephyrian technicians gasped. Their most advanced sensors couldn't penetrate their own ship's shielding, but this small human device was reading everything as if the walls were transparent. "Impossible," Admiral Kethvar whispered. "No device so small could have such power." "It's really just a basic model," Amy said apologetically. "The newer ones are much better." For the first time since meeting the humans, Admiral Kethvar looked uncertain. He had expected to intimidate these primitive aliens with displays of Zephyrian superiority. Instead, he was beginning to suspect that things were not as simple as they appeared. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should arrange for you to meet with Emperor Velther himself. He will want to see these UNUSUAL visitors personally." As the humans were escorted to guest quarters, they whispered among themselves. "Did you notice how proud they were of technology we discarded decades ago?" Lisa asked. "And they think 47 star systems is a huge empire," Dan added. "We need to be careful," Jake warned. "They seem friendly enough, but they're clearly used to being the most powerful civilization around. Learning about humanity might come as quite a shock." None of them realized that they had just encountered the galactic equivalent of a medieval kingdom that had never seen the outside world. The Zephyrians ruled their small corner of space simply because they had never met any real competition. That was about to change in ways that neither species could have imagined. 3 days later, the humans found themselves standing in the most magnificent throne room they had ever seen. The walls were made of pure crystal that sparkled with rainbow colors. Floating platforms held exotic plants and flowing water. The ceiling disappeared into misty clouds high above their heads. Thousands of Zephyrians filled the enormous room. They all knelt on the crystal floor with their heads bowed low. At the far end of the room, on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive diamond, sat Emperor Velther. The emperor was larger than the other Zephyrians, with golden markings on his pale skin and 6 eyes instead of 4. His robes were made of some material that shifted colors like oil on water. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the entire chamber. "Approach, strange visitors from the void," Emperor Velther commanded. Admiral Kethvar had told the humans they were expected to crawl forward on their bellies and kiss the emperor's feet. This was how all subjects showed respect to their divine ruler. Instead, Jake Morrison walked forward, normally with his crew behind him. When they reached the throne, Jake simply nodded his head politely. "Your Majesty," Jake said. "I'm Captain Morrison. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." A shocked silence filled the throne room. No one had ever approached the Emperor standing upright. No one had ever spoken to him as an equal. Several guards started to move forward, but Emperor Velther raised his hand to stop them. "You do not kneel?" the Emperor asked, his voice dangerous. "With respect, Your Majesty, humans don't kneel to anyone," Jake replied calmly. "We believe all thinking beings are equal." The Emperor stared at Jake for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he began to laugh. "Equal? How amusing. Very well, strange humans. I am curious about you. Tell me of this place you call home." "Earth is our home world," Amy said, stepping forward. "It's a blue and green planet with large oceans and 7 continents. About 8 billion people live there." 8 billion on one world? Emperor Velther seemed surprised. "Our capital world has only 2 million inhabitants. Earth is quite crowded," Jake admitted. "That's why we spread out to other planets. We have colonies throughout our local region of space." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "Admiral Kethver tells me you claim to control hundreds of worlds. Surely this is boasting." Don pulled out a small device and projected a holographic star map into the air above them. The map showed hundreds of star systems connected by glowing lines. Each system had symbols indicating human colonies, space stations, and shipping routes. "This is human space," Dan explained. "The blue dots are major colonies. The green dots are mining operations. The red lines show our main trade routes." The Zephyrians in the throne room gasped and whispered among themselves. Even their greatest maps didn't show such a vast area of controlled space. "Impossible," declared Velther's chief advisor, a thin alien named Sektar. "No civilization could be so large. You must be deceiving us with false images." "I understand why it's hard to believe," Jake said diplomatically. "Perhaps we could show you images of some of our worlds." Amy activated her scanner and projected images of human cities. The Zephyrians saw towers that reached into the clouds, transportation systems that moved millions of people, and space elevators that stretched from planet surfaces to orbital stations. Emperor Velther studied the images carefully. "These cities, they are larger than our capital. How many people live in such places?" "New Tokyo has about 30 million residents," Amy replied. "It's not even one of our biggest cities. 30 million. The Emperor ruled over 12 million people in his entire empire, and these humans casually mention cities with more than twice that number." "Show us your military might," demanded General Crixno, the Emperor's war leader. "If you truly command such vast territories, you must have great armies." Mike Torres pulled up images of human military forces. The Zephyrians saw fleets of warships that numbered in the thousands, orbital defense platforms, and ground forces equipped with advanced weapons and armor. "The Colonial Defense Force protects all human worlds," Mike explained. "We have about 2,000 major warships and 15,000 smaller vessels." 2,000 warships? General Crixinal's voice cracked slightly. "The entire Zephyrian fleet consisted of 300 ships." Lisa noticed that the Zephyrians were becoming more and more agitated as they learned about human civilization. She decided to try a different approach. "Your empire is very impressive." "Too," she said kindly. "Your crystal technology is beautiful. We don't have anything like it." Emperor Velther brightened slightly. "Yes, our crystal matrices are unique in the galaxy. They allow us to focus energy in ways no other species has achieved." "How do they work?" Amy asked with genuine curiosity. The Emperor gestured to his chief scientist, an ancient Zephyrian named Dr. Yelmoth. The old alien explained how they grew special crystals in zero gravity, then used them to amplify and direct various forms of energy. Amy listened with real interest. While the technology was primitive compared to human power systems, the crystal matrix approach was creative and elegant. "That's fascinating," she said. "We use quantum field generators for similar purposes, but your method is much more artistic. 4. The first time, the Zephyrians looked pleased. These humans seemed to genuinely appreciate their achievements. Tell us about your art and culture, Jake asked. Any civilization that can create such beautiful architecture must have wonderful artists. This question delighted Emperor Velther. He ordered his court musicians to perform, and the humans listened to haunting melodies played on crystal instruments. That made sounds like singing water. Zephyrian dancers moved like flowing liquid, and their poets recited verses about the beauty of starlight and the mystery of deep space. That was incredible, Dan said sincerely when the performance ended. Your music is unlike anything we've ever heard. The Emperor beamed with pride. We have cultivated the arts for 10,000 years. Every Zephyrian child learns to play at least one instrument. We would love to learn more about your culture, Amy said. Would it be possible for some of our people to visit and study with? Your artists and scientists? This suggestion surprised the Emperor. Usually, when the Zephyrians conquered a new species, they imposed their own culture and destroyed local traditions. The idea of actually learning from someone else was completely new. You wish to learn from us? Emperor Velther asked. Of course. Jake replied. Every civilization has something unique to offer. Your crystal technology and artistic traditions could teach us a great deal. Advisor Sektar whispered urgently in the Emperor's ear. The humans could hear parts of what he said. Dangerous ... Too powerful ... must be controlled. But Emperor Velther waved his advisor away. Tell me, Captain Morrison, what do your people want from us? Do you come as conquerors? Do you demand tribute or surrender? Jake looked confused. We don't want anything from you except friendship and knowledge. We're explorers, not conquerors. Our goal is to learn about the galaxy and make contact with other civilizations. You don't wish to rule over us? The Emperor pressed. Why would? We want to do that? Lisa asked. You seem perfectly capable of governing yourselves. This answer clearly shocked everyone in the throne room. In Zephyrian experience, the strong always dominated the weak. The idea that a superior civilization might choose cooperation over conquest was completely foreign to them. But if you are truly as powerful as you claim, General Crixenel said slowly, you could easily defeat our forces and take our worlds. Yes, we probably could, Mike admitted. But what would be the point? We have plenty of worlds already. We'd rather be friends and trade partners. Emperor Velther sat back in his throne, his 6 eyes wide with amazement. For 10,000 years, the Zephyrian Dominion had been the most powerful force in their region of space. They had conquered dozens of worlds and ruled over millions of beings. Power, in their experience, was always used to dominate others. These humans, who claimed to be far more powerful than the Zephyrians could imagine, spoke of friendship and cooperation. They admired Zephyrian art and wanted to learn from their culture. They showed no interest in conquest or domination. I do not understand you, the Emperor said finally. If you possess such great power, why do you not use it to expand your empire? Because happiness doesn't come from ruling over others, Jake replied. It comes from exploration, discovery, and friendship. The universe is big enough for everyone to find their place in it. As the audience continued, Emperor Velther found himself facing a choice that would change his empire forever. He could either try to fight these powerful humans, or he could try to understand their strange philosophy of cooperation. Not the decision he made would determine the future of both civilizations. Emperor Velther spent the night thinking about the humans and their claims. By morning, he had made his decision. If these strange beings were lying about their capabilities, he would expose them. If they were telling the truth, he needed to know exactly what he was dealing with. Captain Morrison, the Emperor announced when the humans were brought before him again, I have decided to test your claims. We will hold a demonstration in our greatest testing facility. You will show us your technology, and we will show you ours. Then we will know the truth." Jake looked at his crew. They had expected something like this. "What kind of demonstration did you have in mind?" "3 challenges," Emperor Velther declared. "First, you must break through our strongest defensive barrier. Second, you must demonstrate propulsion superior to our fastest ships. Third, you must show us a weapon that matches our most powerful destructive device." General Crixnell stepped forward. "When your primitive technology fails these tests, you will admit your deception and accept proper placement within our empire." "And if we pass the tests?" Jake asked. The Emperor's 6 eyes narrowed. "That is not possible. But if somehow you succeed, we will reconsider our relationship." The testing facility was located on a moon orbiting the capital world. It was a massive complex of laboratories, testing ranges, and experimental equipment. Hundreds of Zephyrian scientists and military officers gathered to witness the demonstration. The first test took place in a huge chamber with walls made of thick metal. In the center of the room stood a barrier made of the same crystal technology that powered Zephyrian ships. It glowed with brilliant blue energy and hummed with power. "This is our ultimate defensive shield," Dr. Yelnath explained proudly. "It can withstand the direct blast of our most powerful weapons. No force in the galaxy can penetrate it." The barrier was truly impressive. It stood 20 feet tall and pulsed with energy. The humans could feel the heat radiating from it even from across the room. "Your turn," General Crixnell said with a smug smile. "Show us how you plan to break through our impenetrable defense." "Lisa." Carter walked forward carrying a device that looked like a simple metal rod with a handle. It was about the size of a large flashlight and had a few control buttons on the side. "This is a standard plasma cutter," she explained. "Every human maintenance worker carries one. We use them for cutting through metal, crystal, and most other materials." The Zephyrians looked at the small device with contempt. Dr. Yelnath laughed. "That tiny tool against our greatest shield? This will be amusing." Lisa activated the plasma cutter. A thin beam of brilliant white energy shot out from the end. She walked up to the barrier and touched the beam to its surface. The crystal shield began to glow brighter as it absorbed the energy from the plasma cutter. For a moment, it seemed like the Zephyrian defense would hold. Then suddenly, a crack appeared where the beam touched the crystal. The crack spread rapidly across the entire surface of the barrier. Within seconds, the whole shield collapsed into glowing fragments that scattered across the floor. The chamber fell, completely silent. Dr. Yelnath stared at the remains of his impenetrable shield in disbelief. General Crixnell's mouth hung open. "How?" Dr. Yelnath whispered. "The plasma cutter uses controlled nuclear fusion to create a beam of superheated gas," Lisa explained casually. "It cuts through most materials by breaking down their molecular bonds." "Nuclear fusion?" Dr. Yelnath repeated. "In a device so small?" "It's really basic technology," Lisa said apologetically. "We've been using fusion tools for over 100 years." The second test moved to the facility's flight range. Here, the Zephyrians brought out their fastest interceptor, a sleek crystal ship that could move at incredible speeds. "The Star Dart is the pinnacle of our propulsion technology," Admiral Kethvar announced. "It can travel at 0.7 light speed and outmaneuver any enemy vessel." The Star Dart launched into the testing range and began flying in complex patterns, showing off its speed and agility. It truly was an impressive sight, moving like a silver arrow through space. "Now show us your propulsion." General Crixnell demanded. Don Parker walked over to a control panel and sent a signal to the Wanderer, which was still docked in the space station above them. "I'm activating our basic maneuvering thrusters," he said. On the viewing screens, they could see the human ship begin to move. At first, it seemed slow compared to the Star Dart, but then the Wanderer began accelerating, and accelerating, and accelerating. Within minutes, the human ship was moving so fast that it appeared as just a blur on the screens. It performed maneuvers. That should have been impossible, turning and spinning without any regard for inertia or momentum. That's impossible, Admiral Kethfer gasped. No ship can move like that without tearing itself apart. Inertial dampeners, Dan explained. They create a localized gravity field that cancels out acceleration forces. And these are just our basic thrusters. Our main engines can push us to about 20 times light speed. 20 times light speed? Admiral Kethfer sat down heavily. The fastest Zephyrian ship could barely reach light speed, and only for short periods. The third test was held in the facility's weapons range. The Zephyrians wheeled out their most devastating weapon, a massive crystal cannon that took up an entire room. Energy conduits as thick as tree trunks fed power into the device. Behold the planet breaker, General Crixenel announced with pride. This weapon can crack a world in half. It is the ultimate expression of destructive power. The weapon fired at a target asteroid floating in space nearby. The energy beam that shot out was spectacular, lighting up the entire testing range with brilliant purple light. When the beam hit the asteroid, it exploded into millions of pieces. Impressive, Mike Torres said sincerely. That's a lot of raw power. Now show us your ultimate weapon, Emperor Velther commanded, if you have one. Amy looked uncomfortable. Your Majesty, we don't really carry weapons on exploration ships. The Wanderer only has basic defensive systems. General Crixenel smiled triumphantly. Then you admit defeat in this test. Well, Amy said slowly, I suppose I could show you some images from our deep space construction projects. She activated her scanner and projected a holographic image into the air. The Zephyrians saw what looked like a normal yellow star surrounded by metal structures and energy beams. This is the Tau Ceti construction project, Amy explained. We needed rare materials that only exist in stellar cores, so we're carefully dismantling the star to get them. The image showed massive machines, the size of small moons, working on the star's surface. Controlled explosions were removing layers of stellar material, while huge collectors gathered the exotic matter from the star's core. You single quotes destroying a star? Dr. Yelmuth asked weakly. Not destroying, Amy corrected. Dismantling. When we're done, we'll rebuild it as a more efficient fusion reactor. The project should be finished in about 50 years. Emperor Velther stared at the images in horror. The Zephyrians were proud of their planet breaker, which could destroy a single world. But these humans casually took apart entire stars like children playing with building blocks. This is routine construction work? General Crixenel asked in a small voice. Stellar engineering is pretty common, Amy said. Though, this is one of the bigger projects. Most of the time we just build orbital habitats or move asteroids around. The demonstration was over. The humans had passed all 3 tests with technologies they considered basic and routine. What the Zephyrians viewed as ultimate achievements were, to humanity, simple tools that any maintenance worker or construction crew might use. Emperor Velther sat in silence for a long time, staring at the holographic image of humans casually dismantling a star. Finally, he spoke. We have made a terrible mistake, he said quietly. We thought we were the masters of this galaxy. We believed our power was supreme, but we are nothing compared to you. That's not true, Jake said firmly. You have a beautiful civilization with incredible art and culture. You've achieved amazing things. But we are primitive savages compared to your people, the Emperor replied sadly. No, Jake insisted. You're different from us, but that doesn't make you primitive. Every civilization develops along its own path. You've created things we never could have imagined. Emperor Velther looked up at the human captain. Then what happens now? Will you conquer us? Will you make us slaves? Jake smiled. Your Majesty, we'd like to be your friends. If you're interested, we could establish trade relations, cultural exchanges, maybe even technological cooperation. You would share your knowledge with us? Some of it, Lisa said. We'd have to be careful not to disrupt your society too much. But there are definitely things we could help you with. Amy stepped forward. Your crystal technology is fascinating. We could show you some new applications for it that might improve your energy systems. Mike added, and we could help train your security forces in modern tactics. Not for conquest, but for better protection of your people. Dan nodded. Our communication networks could connect your empire more efficiently. Messages that take minutes could be sent instantly. Emperor Velther listened to their offers with growing amazement. But why would you do this? What do you gain from helping us? Knowledge, Jake replied simply. Your artistic traditions, your crystal technology, your philosophical approaches to problems, 2 weeks had passed since the demonstration, and the Zephyrian capital was buzzing with activity. News of the humans and their incredible civilization had spread throughout the empire. Some Zephyrians were excited about the possibilities. Others were frightened by how small their world had suddenly become dot in the imperial palace. Emperor Velther held daily meetings with his advisors to discuss this new reality. The conversations were not always peaceful. Your Majesty, we must consider the danger these humans represent. Advisor Sektar argued for the third time that week. They could destroy our entire civilization without effort. We should prepare our defenses. Prepare defenses against beings who can dismantle stars? General Crixenel shook his head. Sektar, did you not see the demonstration? Our greatest weapons are toys to them. Then we should surrender immediately and beg for mercy. Another advisor suggested fearfully. Emperor Velther listened to the debate with growing frustration. Enough, he said finally. You are all missing the point. The humans have shown no hostile intentions. In fact, they have done nothing but offer friendship and assistance. But they could change their minds, Sektar insisted. What if they decide our worlds would be better used for their own purposes? Then there would be nothing we could do to stop them, the Emperor replied. But I have spent time with Captain Morrison and his crew. They are not conquerors. They are explorers and teachers. Dr. Yelmoth, who had been quietly working with Amy Walsh on crystal technology improvements, spoke up. Your Majesty, in the past 2 weeks I have learned more about energy systems than in the previous 30 years of my life. The humans share their knowledge freely and ask for nothing in return except the chance to learn from us. Exactly, Emperor. Velther said, which brings us to the real question. What kind of civilization do we want to be going forward? This question had been weighing on everyone's minds. For 10,000 years, the Zephyrian Dominion had defined itself by its power over others. They were the conquerors, the rulers, the supreme authority in their region of space. But now they had discovered that they were actually very small fish in a much larger ocean. We could continue as we always have, General Crixenel said thoughtfully. Keep to our own territory and maintain our traditional ways. But that would mean stagnation, Dr. Yelmoth argued. The humans have shown us technologies and ideas that could benefit our people greatly. Or we could embrace this opportunity, Emperor Velther said. We could learn from the humans and grow beyond what we have always been. The debate continued for hours, but gradually a consensus began to emerge. The Zephyrians had been given a rare gift, the chance to see themselves from an outside perspective and choose their future path. Meanwhile, in the human quarters, Jake and his crew were having their own discussions about the situation. I feel A bit guilty, Amy admitted as she worked on her daily reports. We've completely shattered their worldview. Some of them seem really shaken by learning how small their empire is. Change is never easy, Jake replied, but they're handling it better than I expected. Emperor Valther is remarkably adaptable for someone who's ruled an empire for so long. Lisa looked up from the Zephyrian crystal matrix she was studying. You know what impresses me most about them? They could have reacted with fear or aggression when they learned about human capabilities. Instead, they chose curiosity. Most of them, anyway, Mike said. I've been talking with their security forces, and some of them are still worried about our intentions. That's understandable, Dan said. From their perspective, we appeared out of nowhere with technology that makes their military completely obsolete. It's natural for them to be concerned. Jake nodded. Which is why we need to be very careful about how we proceed. We don't want to destabilize their society or make them feel threatened. Over the following days, the humans worked closely with various Zephyrian groups to establish frameworks for cooperation. Amy set up scientific exchange programs, allowing Zephyrian researchers to study human technology while she learned about their crystal systems. Lisa helped their engineers understand the principles behind fusion power and inertial dampening. Mike trained their security forces in modern defensive tactics. Dan worked on upgrading their communication networks. The results were remarkable. Zephyrian scientists began making breakthrough discoveries by combining their crystal technology with human fusion principles. Their engineers designed new ship propulsion systems that were more elegant than anything humans had developed. Their artists created works that incorporated both cultures' aesthetic traditions. But perhaps the most significant change was in the Zephyrians' attitude toward the galaxy around them. Captain Morrison, Emperor Valther, said one day as they walked through the palace gardens, I have been thinking about what you said regarding exploration. What about it? For 10,000 years, we have sent ships into space to conquer and claim territory. But you speak of exploration for the sake of discovery and learning. This is a completely foreign concept to us. Jake stopped beside a fountain, where crystal formations created music as water flowed through them. What kind of exploration interests you? All kinds, the Emperor replied with growing excitement. Scientific exploration to understand how the universe works. Cultural exploration to meet other civilizations like yours. Artistic exploration to find new forms of beauty and expression. Those are all wonderful goals, Jake said, and you don't need our permission to pursue them. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Emperor Valther was quiet for a moment. There is something I must tell you, Captain. When we first met, I thought the Zephyrian Dominion was the pinnacle of galactic civilization. I believed we had achieved everything worth achieving. And now I realize we were living in a small room and thinking it was the entire universe. You opened the door and showed us that there are infinite rooms beyond, each filled with new possibilities. That evening, Emperor Valther called a gathering of all the highest officials in his empire. The great throne room was filled with Zephyrians from across their 47 star systems. My people, the Emperor began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. For 10,000 years we have called ourselves the Zephyrian Dominion. We have defined ourselves by our power over others and our control of territory. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many wondered if their emperor was about to announce major changes to their society. Today, I propose that we choose a new path. I propose that we become explorers instead of conquerors, students instead of rulers, friends instead of masters. The murmuring grew louder. Some voices sounded excited, others concerned. The humans have shown us that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from cooperation and mutual growth. They have demonstrated that the universe is vast enough for all civilizations to flourish. Emperor Velther gestured to where Jake and his crew stood among the crowd. Captain Morrison, would you address my people? Jake stepped forward, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon him. People of the Zephyrian Dominion, he began. When we first met, you showed us incredible hospitality, despite thinking we were primitive visitors. You shared your culture, your art, and your knowledge with us. He paused, looking around the great chamber. What we've learned about your civilization has amazed us. Your crystal technology is centuries ahead of anything we've developed. Your artistic traditions are more sophisticated than ours. Your architectural achievements are breathtaking. Many of the Zephyrians looked surprised. They had become so focused on their technological limitations that they had forgotten their cultural achievements. The humans don't see the Zephyrians as primitive or inferior, Jake continued. We see you as different, which makes you valuable. Every civilization has unique perspectives and solutions. The galaxy is richer when we all contribute our strengths. He turned to address Emperor Velther directly. Your Majesty, whatever path your people choose, humanity would be honored to walk alongside you as friends and partners. The Emperor smiled and stood to address his people one final time. The choice is before us. We can remain as we have always been, masters of our small corner of space. Or we can become something greater, citizens of the galaxy, explorers of the infinite, friends to all who would have us. What say you, people of Zephyria? The response was overwhelming. Thousands of voices rose in agreement, choosing exploration over conquest, growth over stagnation, friendship over domination. 3 days later, Jake and his crew prepared to depart aboard the Wanderer. But they were not leaving the same way they had arrived. Now they carried with them formal diplomatic agreements, cultural exchange protocols, and plans for ongoing cooperation. This isn't goodbye, Emperor Velther said as he saw them off. This is the beginning of a new chapter for both our civilizations. We'll be back, Jake promised. And next time, we'll bring some of our artists and philosophers. I think they'd love to learn from your people. As the Wanderer prepared to jump back toward human space, Amy activated the ship's communication system one last time. The quantum communication network is now active, she announced to the Zephyrians. You can reach us instantly whenever you need to. Thank you, Emperor Velther replied over the com. For everything. You can.